Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Dave's Faves. And we've been doing sort of a mini string of Beethoven, where I've been tossing out some of my all-time favorite Beethoven recordings. A lot of it involving piano literature, or most of them in this particular group, because there's so much great Beethoven piano literature. And a couple of you have said to me, well, when are you going to do more piano stuff? Well, I just did a bunch of Beethoven sonatas with Nelson Freire, and now we're talking about the Fourth Piano Concerto. And this is my however choice. I just think this is the greatest performance of the Fourth Piano Concerto I've ever heard. And certainly, I mean, there are other great ones. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there really are. And I know I love them too. But this one I find to be absolutely special. And it just has a personal resonance with me. It's Ivan Moravec. It's on VAI with his brother-in-law, Martin Turnovsky, conducting. And what orchestra? He's conducting the Orchestra of the Vienna Musikverein, which is not quite the Vienna Philharmonic. Who knows what that is? But they sound fine. And the conducting is excellent, and Moravec is unbelievable. You know, Moravec was a conductor who he's almost impossible to describe. His great fan was Walter Gieseking. He was a student of also Michelangelo. I mean, in other words, he was a phenomenal touch artist. He had the most exquisite tone. And if there's ever a concerto that demands exquisite tone, it's Beethoven's Fourth Piano Concerto. Now, I know the hip period people will say, no, it's written for a forte piano. It was a Walter forte piano, and it sounds like a xylophone. It's just a clank, clankety, 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 clank, clankety, clank. Well, you know, that may be true. And it may be that's what Beethoven originally played it on, or other people played it on. But the fact of the matter is the music makes its own demands. And those demands may or may not be congruent with what the instruments of the day could most readily provide. And this concerto, with its exquisite sensibilities and keen attention to details of spacing and chord, you know, all of those things, and harmony, it requires the most beautiful tone you can make. And this is what made Moravec special and made him more than just your average chord guy. It also requires a sense of line. Because the Fourth Piano Concerto was the concerto in which Beethoven really figured out classical concerto form. That is Mozart's concerto form. This is his homage, in a way, to Mozart. It's the one where he shows that he really understands how Mozart's first movements were shaped. And the way that they're shaped, basically, I'll just give it to you straight, is that the opening tutti, that big, long passage before the piano comes in with its stuff. Now, in this concerto, of course, it opens with the piano doing a little thing, but then the orchestra comes in, and for 5 minutes, you don't hear anything else. And the point of that is not to be the beginning of a symphony. In other words, it's not to show that it's immediately going to be going somewhere and into a development section that furthers the going before it returns home. That's what first movement sonata forms generally do. They tell you that something's going to happen, something dramatic is going to happen, that the music is on an adventure from home base and leaving right away. But in Mozart's concerto form, you have a problem. And the problem is, how do you justify the existence of a solo in that overall program? One way you can do it is to just have them play together from the very beginning, which is what Mendelssohn and later composers did, Schumann and others. They just created normal sonata form movements, as in a symphony, and they had the piano and the orchestra go back and forth. But that wasn't Mozart's way. Mozart's way was to try and characterize both the piano and the orchestra. That is, the piano was a soloist with its own personality and its own character and way of doing things. And the orchestra was the other soloist, and the two of them were engaged in a kind of duet, sometimes harmonious, sometimes they didn't get along as well. And the terms of that discourse, that dialogue, are what Mozart was going to work out, using the themes of the opening orchestral exordium. And so it was important that that opening orchestral exordium not give too much indication of wanting to be someplace else until the piano starts, because it was the soloist who was going to effect that change of key that's going to set the music in motion on its way. And until the soloist does that, the music can't show signs of wanting to go anywhere that quickly. It needs the soloist. They create each other, the orchestra and the soloist. Now, this is a very, very subtle point of form. It's something you may or may not hear, you may not notice, you may not care. But it was the fourth piano concerto in which Beethoven really understood that, because in his earlier concertos, he either didn't have the grip of sonata form at all that he later got, or, as in the third piano concerto, he starts to do what a symphony does and then realizes, wait a minute, no, I shouldn't do that, and immediately returns back to the home key. It's a fascinating effect and a fascinating moment. And Beethoven being Beethoven, he makes something, artistically memorable out of it, even though in strict terms, according to the Mozartian formula, that may have been an error. But we don't care because it sounds great, and great mistakes are often just later taken as strokes of genius. But in the fourth piano concerto, everything is going the way it's going to go. And Moravec just gets it. Oh boy, he gets it. And he gets it in the best possible way. He takes the opening with just exquisite tone, sensitive rubato. He doesn't try to make a meal of that tiny little phrase, but he lets you know something big is going to happen. Turnovsky accompanies beautifully. He has the orchestra playing with lovely, lovely attention to where it's going, what the soloist is doing. This second movement, which is just for strings, it's a dialogue, a real dialogue between the string orchestra and the piano, who have completely different kinds of music that they're confronting each other with. I mean, it's as well worked out as you've ever heard, and Moravec's ability to characterize that music is second to none. And the finale is so often a letdown in this concerto. It really is, but not here at all. It is phenomenal. It has so much punch and vigor and life and accent. Moravec, for all of his reputation as a chord guy, as someone with beautiful touch, was not afraid to play loud. He wasn't afraid to hammer home a note to make the point. And when the movement goes da 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 ba da dum ba da 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 dum da da dum ba da dum ba da dum, to hear Moravec just do those little 3-note da da dum, to just give you a jolt and set the music alight. It's glorious. So this is on VAI. It may still be around. It also comes with the E minor piano sonata, it's a little sonata, about 14 minutes long, 13 minutes long, opus 90, which is lovely. And the C minor variations, the 32 variations on an original theme in C minor. All of the performances are fabulous. Now, Moravec remade the fourth piano concerto for Superfon with Moravec conducting. It wasn't as good as this one. As is so often the case, sometimes those first performances are just the best performances. And this is one of those cases. The sonics are also marvelous here. They really are. So if you can get your hands on this, it's really special. But it remains my favorite performance of the fourth, notwithstanding great other ones by Kovacevic, by Claudio Arrau, who's really fabulous with Colin Davis, and Rudolf Serkin. And I mean, there is no shortage. No shortage at all. But this one I still think has a special place in my Beethovenian soul. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.